Okay, so why do you stay silent when you see the warning signs? You watch someone you care about act in a way that hurts you. They make a cold comment. They push a boundary. They break a small promise. You notice it instantly. Your chest tightens, but then you do something strange. You look away. You make an excuse for them. You tell yourself it was just a bad day. You tell yourself you are being too sensitive. While most people react immediately to disrespectful behavior, you swallow your anger. You pretend everything is fine. You protect the relationship at the expense of your own peace. You think you are being patient. You think you are being understanding. But that is a lie you tell yourself to feel safe. There is a hidden psychological mechanism behind this silence. It is not kindness. It is a quiet form of self-sabotage. And the final reason you do this changes everything you thought you knew about your own strength. Let us look at the first reason. It is called cognitive dissonance. Sigmund Freud talked about how the mind protects itself from uncomfortable truths. When someone you love behaves badly, two conflicting thoughts collide in your brain. The first thought is that this person loves you and is safe. The second thought is that their actions are actively hurting you. These two reality checks cannot exist together peacefully. They create intense psychological friction. Your brain hates this discomfort. It demands a fast solution, so you have two choices. You can accept the harsh reality and face a terrifying conflict, or you can rewrite the narrative. You adjust your perception of their behavior to match your hope. You tell yourself they were tired. You tell yourself they did not mean it that way. You choose a comforting lie over a painful truth. While most people trust what they see, you edit what you see. You do it to keep your world from falling apart. The second reason goes deeper into your past. It is rooted in your childhood conditioning. John Bowlby's attachment theory explains how our early bonds shape our adult lives. If you grew up in a home where love was conditional, you learned a dangerous lesson. You learned that expressing your feelings caused abandonment. You saw that conflict meant danger. To survive in that environment, you developed an anxious or fearful attachment style. You learned to ignore your own internal alarms. You learned to prioritize the emotional state of others just to feel secure. Today, when a partner or friend acts badly, your inner child panics. Expressing hurt feels like a life or death gamble. You fear that if you bring up their toxic behavior, they will leave, so you accept the bad behavior. You trade your self-respect for a false sense of security. You convince yourself that staying quiet is keeping the peace. In reality, you are just reliving an old trauma. The third reason involves a subtle psychological trap known as the sunken cost fallacy. Daniel Kahneman wrote extensively about how human beings make irrational decisions to avoid loss. You have invested months or maybe even years into this person. You have poured your energy, your time, and your emotional energy into building a connection. Admitting that their behavior is destructive means admitting that your investment was a mistake. Your mind rebels against that realization. You feel that if you acknowledge the red flags now, all your past effort was wasted. So you keep staying. You ignore the disrespect because you are waiting for a payout that will never come. You tell yourself that if you just give a little more, they will change. While most people cut their losses when a situation turns toxic, you double down. You keep investing in a sinking ship. You mistake your endurance for loyalty, but endurance in a toxic environment is just slow self-destruction. The fourth reason is a powerful defense mechanism called rationalization. This is where your intelligence works against you. Robert Greene often writes about how people manipulate reality to preserve their own power or comfort. But we also manipulate ourselves. You use your intellect to build logical bridges over obvious red flags. When they speak to you with contempt, you analyze their childhood. You recall their past stress. You find a psychological explanation for their cruelty. You become their therapist instead of their partner. By understanding why they hurt you, you give yourself permission to accept the hurt. You confuse empathy with permission. You believe that if you can explain their toxic behavior, you do not have to confront it. But understanding someone's pain does not give them the right to inflict pain on you. You use your high intelligence to justify your low boundaries. You become an accomplice in your own mistreatment. The fifth reason stems from a deep fear of emotional isolation. Erich Fromm explored this in his work on the human desire to escape freedom and solitude. Humans are deeply wired for connection. But when that desire turns into desperation, your standards collapse. You become terrified of the empty space that leaving or setting a boundary might create. You tell yourself that bad love is better than no love at all. You look at their destructive behavior and you weigh it against the quiet room you might return to alone. Your mind exaggerates the terror of solitude. It makes isolation look like an unbearable sentence. So you lower your baseline for acceptable treatment. You allow boundaries to be pushed. You allow disrespect to become the normal language of your life. While most people draw a line to protect their identity, you erase your line to retain a presence. You settle for crumbs because you are convinced you cannot bake your own bread. The sixth reason is the slow erosion of your trust in your own perception. This is the subtle result of dark psychological dynamics like gaslighting. When you bring up a small issue, the toxic person shifts the blame back to you. They tell you that you are dramatic. They tell you that you are imagining things. Over time, you stop trusting your intuition. You start second-guessing your own pain. You see a clear act of disrespect, but your brain immediately hesitates. You ask yourself if you are making a big deal out of nothing. You look for external validation before you even allow yourself to feel upset. Your internal compass becomes recalibrated to serve their needs instead of your safety. You lose faith in your own eyes and ears. You become an observer in your own life, relying on the person hurting you to tell you if you are actually hurt. This state of confusion keeps you paralyzed and silent. Now we arrive at the big reveal. The real reason you ignore behaviors that destroy relationships is not love, patience, or fear of losing the other person. The true reason is that you are using their destructive behavior to avoid facing your own core identity wound. You have built an identity around being the fixer, the flexible one, the strong one who can endure anything. As long as you are focused on their issues, their bad attitude, and their flaws, you never have to look at your own life. Their chaotic behavior becomes a convenient distraction from your own internal void. You stay in the toxic cycle because it gives you a clear, albeit painful, purpose. You get to feel morally superior. You get to play the tragic hero who sacrificed everything for love. You ignore their red flags because deep down you are terrified of what your life would look like if you stopped managing theirs. Their destruction is your cover story. This realization is heavy, but it is also where your freedom begins. Stoic philosophy from thinkers like Marcus Aurelius reminds us that we cannot control the actions of others. We can only control our responses and our internal standards. The moment you stop managing their behavior, you regain your power. You no longer need to be the silent victim of someone else's emotional chaos. Recognizing this pattern is not a reason to judge yourself. It is an invitation to step into self-awareness. You do not have to accept breadcrumbs of affection just to avoid being alone. You do not have to explain away disrespect to prove your patience. When you begin to honor your own boundaries, the dynamic shifts completely. The people who belong in your life will respect your limits. The ones who do not will fade away. And for the first time, you will realize that losing them was never a sacrifice. It was the moment you finally found yourself.